Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 5 of season 4 of The Legend of Korra called Enemy at the Gates. First of all, did you ever see that movie Enemy at the Gates, the one about Russia during World War II? That's a really, really good movie. But anyway, so this episode is kind of really where a lot of things come to ahead with the Kuvira situation. And things are really on a knife edge. And I have to say, I do really like that they're not wasting a lot of time on this because, well, now the good guys are all on this, basically kind of all on the same page. Everybody realizes that Kuvira needs to be stopped. The only question, of course, is how. Now, I definitely liked those scenes with Kuvira sort of really showing just how utterly ruthless she was. She threatens to flat out murder Varric after he raises pretty reasonable moral objections to the research, and then when Bolin raises some questions and offers up a little bit of criticism of these policies that she has, her immediate reaction is to threaten to send him off to a re-education camp. And when you look at Kuvira, despite everything that's happened with her and where she comes from, her seeing Sue pass up the chance to really do something, this person that she admired, this person who was basically like a second mother to her, rejecting this chance to put her home back together, basically in Kuvira's mind, abandoning it to chaos. Well, it's not really such a surprise that she would sort of go down the road towards wanting to do something about it. And that's kind of one of those things. Some roads you start walking down, it's not so easy to step off those paths. It's sort of like that line from that old song, where do I go now that I've gone too far? And I don't think Kuvira has even really realized just how far it is that she's gone. She's stepped away so far from the principles in which she was raised. But the thing is, though, when it's basically chaos out there, when it's anarchy of the worst sort, then you can't afford to play nice. I mean, Kuvira does raise a point that somebody strong needed to go out there and put things right, put things back together, because if the system is not in place, then well, a lot of things just basically flat out go to hell. But it's a question of, well, yeah, sometimes you might have to do harsh things, make uncomfortable choices in order to, accomplish things for the greater good. But it's always the question of where's the line? And basically, when you get to the point where you're threatening to murder people if they don't do what you say, and or throw them off into re-education camps, then it's pretty safe to say that you're looking at having crossed that line. And the sad thing is that Kuvira doesn't even really realize that she's not that different from the Earth Queen. I mean, the Earth Queen was basically forcibly drafting people into fighting for her. Same thing that Kuvira does. And was perfectly willing to people who, she didn't care for. I mean, it's implied that she ate her father's pet bear, for God's sake. So again, they're really not that different. And the way Kuvira is going, if she marries Baatar and let's say she succeeds in what she's doing and gets control of the Earth Kingdom, marries Baatar, well, Kuvira knows that she's not going to live forever. What does she do when she realizes I'm going to have to eventually hand the reins off to somebody else? Is she going to say, okay, democratic elections time? No. Is she going to in any way, shape, or form really let the people choose who their next leader is? Probably not. Who is she going to go to? Well, odds are she'd go to one of her kids, somebody she has raised in her ideals, groomed, and probably almost certainly groomed to take over for her. I mean, it would basically be like North Korea and the Kim dynasty, and that's basically exactly what she's trying to create, which arguably would be even worse than what was going on with the Earth Queen. So, it's Kuvira as a prime example of be careful about gazing into the abyss, because the abyss will gaze back into you. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong Nietzsche. Yeah, whosoever fights monsters and all that. Yes, that's what I'm going for. Well, I guess I just screwed up my credibility as a knowledgeable person when it comes to German intellectuals. Somehow, I think I'll survive that one. Anyway, and we do get a little bit of insight into what's going on with Batar this episode. It's just mostly he felt like he was stuck in his father's shadow. And, it's another example of he's just gone so completely far that he's really willing to attack his hometown, battle against his parents and siblings. I mean, he's just so desperate to not be in his father's shadow that he's willing to basically destroy, the world from which he came. I also did like the moment where Batar instantly realizes that, Bolin was up to something. So he's definitely been presented as somebody who is a formidable asset to Kuvira's camp. And, but continuing on. Now, the thing about what's going on here with Zaofu is that Kuvira does make a good point that she just can't walk away from this. And the reason that is that, from her perspective, if she does that, then all the people who do not like what she's doing are going to flood into Zaofu, and it's going to become a bastion of opposition against her. It would sort of be like, if you want to look at another example from China, sort of like Taiwan. Now, of course, the history of Taiwan is a pretty different thing. Actually, in fact, it might even be more appropriate to refer to it as Hong Kong. Hong Kong, before the Chinese full-on takeover back in 1999. Well, a lot of people who had serious objections to what was going on with the Chinese government, but didn't want to full-on leave China, would head to Hong Kong. And I mean, even there, right now, China's grip on Hong Kong is not quite as strong as they are in, say, places like Shanghai and Beijing. Not that the Chinese government certainly wouldn't like it that way. And, just look at what's going on there with the protesters. But yeah, basically, what would happen is all the people who didn't like Kuvira would flood into Zaofu. The Fire Lord, Raiko, the Water Tribe leaders would basically rally behind Sue and insist that this time she take up the mantle and lead the resistance to drive Kuvira from power, and Sue would do it. This time she would not be able to walk away from it because, well, the situation really would just be that bad. And there would be plenty of other ordinary people in the Earth Kingdom, once word got around, who don't like what Kuvira is doing, and would also rally behind Sue's banner to oust Kuvira. And it would basically be a civil war. So, basically, from a strategic perspective, yeah, there's no way in hell that Kuvira can let Zaofu not fall. Anyway, so let's kind of look a little bit more at what's going on with the characters. Now, this, of course, episode is a very rude awakening for Bolin, as he really sees what Kuvira is like. He sees that, Opal and, Sue's kids, people he considered his friends, just don't even want to speak to him. Bolin's a guy who really does want to believe the best in people, and he does tend to take it to a bit of an extreme. But really, at worst, Bolin is basically guilty of being naive and perhaps even a little bit gullible. But he's not a complete fool. Once he's presented with real ironclad evidence of what's going on with him, he immediately takes action to try and do the right thing. He saves Varric and Julie, and they're like, hey, we have to go help the people in Zaofu. And he even acknowledges Varric's point that, hey, we need to warn Republic City. I think if they hadn't been attacked in that moment, he would have said, okay, you guys go warn Republic City, and I'll go help Zaofu. Didn't work out so well for him. Now, Varric, it was interesting to see him, of all people, sort of grow a conscience and just say, refuse to do something simply because this is too dangerous. But on the other hand, look at Varric. He's seen what happens when, the wrong people get power. He spent a lot of time around the Avatar, and basically he's also been one of the wrong people with power. But Varric's never been really presented as an evil person, just kind of a selfish guy, a guy who's sometimes rather selfish and is selfish and greedy and probably just a little bit too interested in wow that's cool rather than should I be really doing this. But again, he's never been presented as evil, so the idea that he would eventually realize like, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea, maybe I should just walk away from this and make sure that nothing bad happens, well, again, that's some real growth for his character. And well, things again once again didn't really work out that well for him. I think the writers do have quite a soft spot for Varric, and he is a very entertaining character. So I have a feeling that things will probably work out for him in the end. Now, it was really interesting what was going on with Zhu Li. To see her basically just sort of break out those badass mecha skills. I mean, where in the world did those come from? And then there's the whole thing of her turning on Varric. And then her just reading out that laundry list of reasons why she turns on him. But I can't help but wonder, well, where did she pick up those skills? And boy, that was awful convenient how she said exactly what Kuvira needed to hear in order to give her another chance. So, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe there's not more to Zhu Li than meets the eye. And I mean, if this is all a kind of a setup for some grand stratagem to work against Kuvira, then I'm going to be really darn impressed. Because, just having skills like that out of the blue, that just seems way too unbelievable. I really think the writers are kind of setting us up for something there. And let's see. Not much to particularly say about what's going on with Korra this episode, just that she goes in there and she tries to do the reasonable thing and talk with people. But, I mean, even she realizes this is not going to end well. Now, the question, of course, is she going to do as Sue suggests and go into the Avastar state and, wipe Kuvira's army out? Well, Avatar Kyoshi probably would have been like, okay, fine, bring it. She'd basically look at Kuvira and see Chin the Conqueror 2.0. But somehow I don't think it's going to be that easy for Korra. And let's see, what else? No, I think that kind of covers most everybody. Now, the little subplot we have this episode is Asami and her relationship with her dad. And I have to say, if the good guys were able to draft Hiroshi back onto their team to sort of help come up with some sort of technological solution to help cut Kuvira down to size, then that would be a pretty good thing for them to do. But this did show that Hiroshi had really, well, basically, prison had been hard on him, and he had really kind of come to his senses. I mean, remember, Hiroshi was willing to physically attack Asami when she stood against him. And, basically having your dad try and kill you, that's, your dad tries to kill you, your family's reputation gets dragged through the mud, the family business almost collapses. I mean, Asami's got some serious reasons to not want to forgive her dad. But, to err is human, to forgive is divine. And I like how basically Hiroshi says, I'll understand if you never forgive me. Because, well, what else is he really going to say? He can't honestly just demand that she forgive him. It doesn't work that way. But, love is a funny thing. It can hurt us, it can give us wings, and it can lead us to forgive people who've done us terrible, terrible wrongs. And, well, a little bit of love in what's going on right now in the Avatar world could probably do a lot of good. Kids turning against parents, kids turning against adoptive parents, people turning against, those who have loyally served them. All you need is love, folks. Anyway, guys, that kind of covers everything that I had to say about this episode. So, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.